Okay, let's get started on our next session. If everybody wants to get a cup of coffee, get comfortable. I'll start out by asking if everybody got one of these little worksheets in their handout. We're not going to do it right away, but I just want to know because we got some extras up here. You don't have one? Yeah. Yeah, all right. This way we'll make sure everybody has one. I'm going to get to that in a few minutes, but okay. Boy, all right. We can make more if we need them. We talked at last hour about the third step, making this big decision to open up this channel, to turn our lives over, to try and do the work so that we can be guided by something other than ourselves. And I think I mentioned that it's going to take a lot of work because there's a lot of things blocking us from being able to open this channel. And these blockages in AA are called character defects. That's our name for the blockages. And these are things that are inside of us that are preventing us from having any contact with a higher power. I went and learned a lot about God when I was in church, but I never learned how to have contact, personal contact. All I knew was after I died, I was probably going to get punished by somebody, but I didn't have a technique to have day-to-day contact so that I could be aware inside of myself that there really was something called a higher power for me. And that's what AA is about, is how do you achieve that so that you got your own higher power that you can feel and that and you know it for sure that it's there. That's what this is. Well, it turns out that we have a lot of things that are blocking us from being able to experience feeling this higher power. And that's where the fourth step comes in. That's the beginning of opening up this channel. And the fourth step said, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. And we're going to look a little bit about that when we get to the sheet. But before we get there, I want to talk about these character defects because the word itself sounds like there's something wrong with me, a character defect. You know what I'm saying? And that's why I like blockages better. When we read the 12 and 12, and if you're new, you want to read both books. I love the big book, but I love the 12 and 12 just as much. And I think they go hand in hand, that there is stuff in the 12 and 12 that's far superior to the explanation in the big book, and there's stuff in the big book that's far superior to the explanation in the 12 and 12. So they really go well together. And I encourage you to use them both as the main text of your sobriety in Alcoholics Anonymous. And in the big book you find, this is where this worksheet came from, it is a wonderful how to do the fourth step. But in the 12 and 12 is an explanation of the dynamics of character defects that are so important to understand what they're all about. And Bill explains character defects this way. He said, every human being is born with the same instinctual drives. Okay? And these drives are for sex, security, and society. So every little baby that arrives, boop, gets one standard issue of instinctual drives, okay? Everybody gets them. Boop. It's not your fault you have them. They're part of being a human being. Without the instinctual drives, we wouldn't take care of ourselves. We wouldn't eat. We wouldn't reproduce. We wouldn't form into societies. So these energy pockets are put inside of all of us. And the purpose of those energy things is to allow us to successfully function as human beings. The problem is they end up controlling us. That's the problem. Almost everybody ends up being controlled by your own instinctual drives. You're sitting at work in the afternoon, and the boss has said, look, you keep taking off from work, you keep doing this, and you're going to get fired if you keep doing that. And you say, I'm going to stay here. I'm going to work all afternoon. And then our sexual, instinctual drive said, I think we ought to leave about 3 o'clock and go see Mary. But you might get fired. Yeah, but it's urgent. I think we ought to go right now. But I might get fired. It's real urgent. So guess who goes out the door? Do you go out the door, or is it our instinctual drive pulling us out the door? You see what I'm saying? Or it may be fear. Fear says you ought to go in there and ask for that job. I mean, we say we ought to go in, and fear said no. They'll laugh at you if you went in there. Don't go in. So now we're being controlled by fear. Then anger takes over. Rage takes over. Resentment takes over. Everything takes over. We're not even there anymore. We're just out there obeying our instinctual drives. Well, I wonder what I'm going to be forced to do today. You see what I'm saying? They are such a powerful part of our lives. So we come up with a plan for living based on these drives that are inside of us. And everybody comes up with the same plan. You know what the plan is? I have to get enough stuff to make these drives, these desires, be satisfied. Then they'll get off my back. So everybody comes up with that same plan. All of us had that plan. And so we start out and we just go, well, I need to get some more power. Then I'll be somebody. So I'm going to be in charge. And then we just work our way up to do that. Somebody else says, I need more money. It's clear. If I had enough money, I could quiet all this stuff down. If I had enough sex, then I could just turn this drives off for a while. So we go out to get all these things. Well, you know what the problem is? There's people in our way. You ever notice that? Somebody else wants the job. Hey, I'm applying for the job. What the hell are you applying for? He's got the same drives. He needs it too. You know what I'm saying? So now we're elbowing each other. We're out there and there isn't enough to go around. You might prevent me from getting mine. So you're my enemy. You see, so it doesn't produce harmony. When we're out there trying to get stuff to meet these drives, we're all competing with each other. And we can't, it's hard, and we go, isn't the world wonderful, all this brotherly love, and we're all together, and that, and secretly we're going, like hell, I'm going to squash that guy, and I'm going to get this, and I'm going to do that, because I got to get mine. Who's going to take care of me if I don't? Does that sound familiar as a way of living? And then for us alcoholics, we found alcohol. And alcohol was the answer to everything. We had all these problems. You remember those problems? You go into a bar, everything's driving me crazy. I'm insecure, I don't have the rent money, I got this, I don't know what's going on. I go in the bar and I have 3 drinks, and then I say to myself, what was it I was so upset about when I came in here? Don't even remember anymore. Wow, this alcohol is powerful. You drink enough alcohol, you don't need to worry about all the rest of that crap. Actually, all you need is alcohol. You just always got a little drinking money, and you've got a plan for living. Takes care of all the problems. What's your philosophy of living? Drink. Boy, that's a pretty simple philosophy. Yeah, I know, but it's very powerful. I don't ever remember saying to myself, here's a problem I won't be drinking over. You ever remember having that? I got this problem. What do I do? Well, I won't be drinking. I know that. Well, how am I going to solve the problem? I mean, step 1 in solving a problem is get a drink. I remember a summons came in the mail. What the hell's a summons? What do you do when you get a summons? I don't know, but I will shortly. Get the bottle. 3 glasses. All right, summons. Hey, tear it up. Okay. I mean, it's very easy because alcohol provided the answers. So all problem solving, so us alcoholics, we finally got an answer. to all these things, these instinctual drives that are driving us crazy. What we really found was a power greater than ourselves could push all these things down so they weren't driving us crazy. We were totally satisfied with everything just the way it was when we had a buzz on. You remember that? You just walked around just going, what's the matter with you, man? I'm just fine. That's what's the matter with me. I'm just fine. You mean just fine, fine? Yeah, I'm fine. And so that was the power of alcohol. So anyway, we're left with these instinctual drives that cause the character defects. So it's not our fault that we have these character defects. I was terribly worried about guilt when I came in here. Catholic training, any other Catholics around you, you really, oh yes, when you understand what I'm talking about, they have special nuns that teach guilt from the time you're 3. And then you go on and you master in guilt. You have PhDs in guilt, and some time ago, I think it's on the back of this thing, yes, I wrote a paper on guilt so that those of you that don't have advanced degrees in guilt, I'll share with you what it's like. I must have done something wrong before I was born to upset God, or he wouldn't have forced me to be born. My original sin was self-induced. I feel very guilty about whatever I did, and I feel guilty about feeling guilty. I feel guilty about the things I'm going to do in the future. My birth itself makes me feel guilty. Somehow I should have been able to spare my mother the pains of childbirth. I feel guilty of not fulfilling the potential that my parents and teachers said I had. I felt guilty about having the potential. And guilty for not knowing what the potential was for. I feel guilty for not having the courage to do certain wrong things that others enjoy doing, and then I could feel some real guilt. I feel guilty because I'm always doing the things that God doesn't want me to do. And that is because I don't know what he does want me to do, which makes me feel guilty about not knowing what God wants me to do. Therefore, I feel guilty about having done whatever caused God to not let me know what he wants me to do. As a result, I feel guilty that this can never be changed unless God lets it be changed, and he won't until I stop feeling guilty, which causes me to feel guilty about feeling guilty. But I feel guilty about wanting to get rid of this guilt because I know I'm supposed to have this guilt. I'm supposed to have this guilt because I really am guilty. Guilty of what? Well, guilty of all the things that make me feel guilty. Why do you ask? That's advanced guilt. When you get there, you just are guilty, and that's the end of that. The point of the chapter in the 12 and 12 is to get rid of guilt and point to us that these character defects, these instinctual drives that cause them, were put there by God. You didn't create lust. You didn't create the desire for money. You didn't create the desire to have a place in society. That was put in there by God. The challenge is to not allow those desires to run your life. Now, I thought you were supposed to be able to do that on your own. That was my mistake. And most people think that they're supposed to be able to do that on their own. In other words, I thought that I could live up to moral values on my own without any help. I could set standards for myself to be an honest, decent, wonderful person, and then I was supposed to live up to them with my willpower. And I failed every time. And the reason is, that's not the way God set it up. He didn't set it up that we're supposed to be able to do this on our own. We're supposed to ask his help. And here's the whole change that takes place when we understand the fourth step. There's 2 ways to get peace of mind with these instinctual drives that are driving us crazy. One is to go out and get everything there is in the world that will supply these demands. You see what I mean? Get 100 women, 2 pounds of cocaine, $14 billion, 6 yachts, and be in charge of a large corporation. And even guys that get there go, it's still not enough. They're still driving me crazy. So that's called getting enough supply to fill the demand. That's the one equation. On the other side, which is AA, what if we could cut you a deal to put you in touch with a power that will reduce those demands down so they're not driving you crazy? And that's what sobriety is. We're going to put you in touch with a power that pushes those demands down where they're supposed to be so they're not running your life. They will just supply you the energy as you go ahead doing the next right thing. But they will no longer be in charge. Would you like that? And part of me said, well, I guess technically that's a solution. But my ego still liked the idea of trying to supply them all and getting all that stuff. Demand reduction. You'll see that all throughout AA. We're going to quiet these instinctual drives so they're no longer in charge. In order to do that, we have to find out what they are. Even though they're the same for everybody, they come out with different disguises on in our own personal lives. So I sort of explained the dynamics of character defects as they come out of the 12 and 12. Then we go back to the big book, and the handout that I gave everybody was prepared by a friend of mine named Bob Darrell. He won't mind me breaking his anonymity, from Las Vegas, Nevada, who speaks a lot around in AA. And he put together this out of the big book. You will see that everything is just as it talks about in step 4 in the big book, only it's filled out on 3 different pages, just as it's laid out in the big book, that there's 3 inventories that we really do. We inventory our resentments, then we inventory our fears, and then we inventory sex relations. And then there's different categories going across. And so I'm going to very brief, what I thought we'd do is, let me just go across it real fast, and then, just for practice, just try and find one resentment, one fear, and one sex relation that we're being selfish in, or that needs work on. So just so you can have something to do, and I can stop talking and take a break. And then you can take this home. It may be something, if you're sponsoring somebody, you could use this as a guide. If you're brand new, show it to your sponsor and see if this would be something that is useful when you get ready to do the 4th step. I'm not suggesting that you do this and then go tell your sponsor that Sandy showed you how to do the 4th step. I'm not suggesting that. I'm just saying there's some wonderful formatting here to show how this could be done. So we look at this resentments. I'm resentful at my boss. The reason I'm resentful at my boss, he yelled at me at work for doing a lousy job. What was affected? Well, it hurt my self-esteem. It hurt my material security because it might affect the dollars I might lose. See these little columns under what was affected? It affected my emotional security because he made me look bad in front of the other people. Didn't affect sex relations. And it affected my ambition because I want to get promoted. So, boy, that guy saying those things really was a threat to me. This was our cost. This is what do I do about this resentment? I realized at once that the people who have wronged you are spiritually sick. They are like yourself, are sick too. Can I now see that if I was in their shoes, with their fears, insecurities, and background experience, I could have done to someone what they did to me? Maybe if I was the boss, I would have said the same thing. And so I get to understand what is going on. The prayer, ask God to help you show the same tolerance, pity, and patience that we would cheerfully grant a sick friend. How can I be helpful? God, save me from being angry. Thy will be done. Exact nature of our wrongs. Where was I selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, frightened? Where was I to blame? So we look at these things. Maybe I did a lousy job. Maybe when I finally look at this thing, I go, I was goofing off. I hadn't done any work in the last 30 minutes. I can see what was the cause of all this. I'm simply trying to do an inventory honestly for the first time about the dynamics of what is making me uncomfortable. The reason I'm talking about uncomfortable is this is the point of sobriety. And we're going to get to there in the 10th step, is to learn how to, number one, not get disturbed as often, and number two, how, whenever we get disturbed, we can go right back to being undisturbed. That is called winning. That's the victory in AA, is to go back to being undisturbed. So there's all these little things that freak us out during the day, and they used to, when we first got sober, that event would freak us out for a week. Then after a certain amount of sobriety, it freaks us out for a day. Then we work on it even more. The same thing freaks us out for an hour, then a half an hour, then 10 minutes, then a minute. You see the difference. We just learn how to go, oh yeah, the guy's yelling at me. Well, I'll be upset for a minute. Let him go. He likes to yell. You know, wow, you ever seen people that do that? Let him yell. He likes to yell. And it's like, are you immune to that? No, they've learned how to be spiritual. They've learned how that I don't need that in order to be a real person. I have taken these steps, and I have a higher power inside of me that's already telling me I'm okay. So he can yell all he wants. It won't affect how I feel about myself. That's power. He can yell that I'm a jerk 100 times. And I got God inside of me going, no, you're not a jerk. No, you're not a jerk. He can yell all you want. You're not. You're a wonderful spiritual child. Oh, well, then let him yell. Now, without God, he just shrinks me. The more he yells, the more I go down. So that's why we're doing this. We want to get these out of the way. The steps will allow us to remove these. Same thing on fears. I'm afraid of whatever it may be. I'm afraid to go on a job interview. Why am I afraid? Then I can look in there. I'm afraid the guy will say no. Can't stand rejection. What was threatened? Look at all the things that can be threatened. My self-esteem, my material security, all the same things. A lot of them are going to be the same for almost everything. How has self-reliance failed me? I'm nervous all the time. That's self-reliance. No God. I'm relying on myself. I'm a nervous wreck all the time. Did I try to cover it up with cockiness? How many times have we done that? Let's play the tough guy. Hey, you think that stuff bothers me? Hey, get over here, hey. And then we get inside. I'm so scared, I want to get out of here. But we can't let anybody see that. So then we cover it up, and then nobody wants to hire a cocky person. What the hell is that act? You know, so we're seeing our fears for the first time. Did it make it worse? Can I now trust and rely on God? Trust an infinite God rather than trust a infinite God rather than our finite selves. That should be finite. And last, ask God to remove the fear and direct our attention to what he would have us be. So, instead of trying to be brave, you know, I thought when I was little that you would get rid of fear by doing brave things. That's what I thought. And I started out, I would climb anything. I would play chicken with cars, and the other guy had to turn. I became a steeplejack. I worked all the way through high school and college, climbing up on top of buildings and steeples and radio towers, changing bulbs. I was doing all these brave things because I was terrified. And I said, you know, I'm going to climb up there 300 feet. When I come down, I won't be scared anymore. Brrr, go up to the top, go all the way down. I'm still scared. You know what I mean? Then I got in the Marine Corps, and then fighter. I'm going to get rid of this fear. Here it is. Ask God to remove the fear. I never did that because I wanted to do it on my own. And so here's the difference. The whole difference of the program is it's all about God now. And we got to get rid of self. Last, sex relations. Anytime you want to see a very quiet meeting in AA, say, okay, tonight let's talk about sex. Mary, you want to start? Because we're all apprehensive about talking, because the sexual drive is so strong. It's one strong, probably the strongest damn drive everybody has. And we just, you know, it can scare you because it's stronger than we really want it to be. And so we get, well, no, I don't know if I want to talk about this. So we never do. So that gives it even more power. You know what I mean? It's so powerful, I don't talk about it. That's how powerful it is. So we never bring up anything to our friends. And what do we learn about sex? Who taught us sex? I don't know about you, but I learned more about sex off of bathroom walls. I'd be in the bathroom and go, oh my God, I didn't know that. That's a, whoo, whoo, whoo. But I can't ask anybody because then I won't be cool. Then they'll know I don't know everything. So I just take it inside. Well, okay. Uh-oh, here's another little thing a guy wrote in there. Is that true? Oh, Jesus. So I have all these things. And then I do something when I'm little and I feel guilty about it when I'm 40. But I've never told anybody. Can't talk about this. So now we come in here and we go, well, we're going to start. We're going to make a beginning about talking about this because sex is a problem for everybody. Everybody in this room. Look around, folks. The person sitting next to you has a sexual problem. Oh, my God. What we mean by that is we're uncomfortable in a certain situation. Or we have something going on that maybe we know we shouldn't. Or maybe I do this and I wish I didn't, but I like it. But I have some tension. I have a conflict. I have this. And I go, it's not my magazine. I don't know how it got in here. I think that somebody left it here. I would have a magazine like that next to the big book? Of course I would. I don't know where that came from. Now they leave. Well, where was I? So there's all these dynamics going on, and it's creating tension. So here's a beginning. Here's a beginning of establishing what the big book talks about is a balanced sexual life for me. Not for you and not for anybody else, because as Bill said, some people like a lot of pepper and some people don't like anything at all. So what's comfortable for me may be uncomfortable for you. And so I want to inventory, what can I do and still maintain centeredness? What can be comfortable for me? Nothing to do with anybody else. So we start through and we look and we find out a lot of the times the problem is we're being real selfish. And that is causing us to rebel against that. Because anytime we're selfish, we're moving ourselves away from God. That's the problem. As soon as we move away, we're on our own. And then the world overpowers us. And so sex is a big area to inventory and to have somebody to talk to about it. And so this is the beginning. So we look in here and we list all the relationships where sexuality was involved. Okay, so list your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your wife, your husband, or whatever. Then we look down. Where have I been selfish? Where have I been dishonest? Who hasn't told some little white lie somewhere? Where have I been inconsiderate? Sorry, I got a headache. No, I got to do this. No, I got to do that. Who do I hurt? Well, if we really look at this, well, geez, maybe I did hurt somebody. Because you got to realize the other person is just as sensitive as you are. This is a tough area for both sides. So the slightest little thing that I can say could hurt someone. Whether it's rejection or being demanding. Am I learning how to communicate? So this is very important to talk about these things. Where was I? Let's see. Did I unjustifiably arouse jealousy in them? That's another thing. Sometimes we casually flirt and we think it's cute. You know what I mean? Oh, here's some new guy in the program or some new girl or a girl at work or guy at work or whatever it is. Hi, hi, hi. Well, what if our wife sees us doing that? Hey, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Doesn't matter. When you've been hit with jealousy, it hurts like hell. You're powerless over it. You've all probably had that happen where you were the victim of jealousy. Your husband or your wife was just kidding around a little bit and So then did I unjustifiably arouse that? We start trying to really inventory everything we're doing in terms of others because we're no longer just being selfish. So here's a chance to really look at this. Maybe I really